Welcome to Unholy Inquiry, where each tale leads you deeper into a labyrinth of mystery waiting to be uncovered. This time, join us as we delve into Hercule Poirot and the Scent of Poisoned Violets, a fan-crafted story that pays homage to the genius and sophistication of Agatha Christie's iconic detective, Hercule Poirot. We are thrilled to have you with us on this captivating journey. Share your thoughts, let us know where you're tuning in from, and if you spot any details we missed, your feedback is invaluable. Together, let's continue to shape even more thrilling enigmas. Chapter 1. The Invitation to Dine. The scream echoed through the vast hollow hall of Lysander Manor, a chilling sound slicing through the velvet of night, followed by a dull thud that sent a shiver spiraling down Hercule Poirot's spine as he stood frozen on the threshold of the grand entrance. It was as though a demon had broken free from the sanctuary of silence, a cry that demanded urgent attention, and, in stark contrast, the opulence surrounding him, a cavern of artful arrangements and decadent decor whose beauty was now obscured by dread. Poirot's heart raced. Something terrible had transpired, and he had stumbled upon it the very moment he crossed the threshold. As he stepped inside, the great chandelier overhead flickered unevenly, casting wavering shadows on the polished marble floor. The scent of smoke lingered in the air, whispering of a recently extinguished flame, while outside the storm raged, lightning illuminating the darkened windows. Poirot's mind was as sharp as the lightning's flash, racing to understand the strange shift in the atmosphere as he made his way toward the source of the alarm. He moved with an elegance born of necessity, his tightly curled mustache bristling with each calculated step. Bursting into the drawing room, he found a small group gathered, their faces as pale as the marble bust that gazed down upon them. The victim, a middle-aged man, sprawled on the Persian rug, was Adrian Grayson, the affluent host known for his extravagant soirees and sharp wit. A crimson stain blossomed from his chest, spreading slowly across the rug, as if the very fibers were absorbing his life force. Around him stood four guests: the elegant Miss Genevieve Lear, her ubiquitous fur stole hanging limply from her shoulders; Charles Beckwith, an earnest-looking man with glasses slipping down his nose; the insufferably gloomy Lady Constance Harrington; and the flamboyant dramatist Roger Wycombe, whose theatrical air did little to disguise the distress etched across his features. "My God, he's dead!" Genevieve shrieked, stepping back into the shadow of the wall, her eyes wide with fright. "Somebody call for help." "Help?" Poirot spoke, his voice a soft, terrifying calm that sliced through the chaos. "No, we need more than help. We need understanding. Just what has transpired here tonight?" Roger began to tremble, his hands flailing like a madman. "I saw a shadow, I swear it. Before we knew it, he faltered, glancing at the grisly scene before him, working to maintain his composure. It was as if the walls themselves conspired against him. Poirot's keen gaze flitted from one individual to another, observing their reactions, their fears laid bare, like the man's lifeless body on the floor. "And you, Monsieur Beckwith," he said, directing his gaze to the bespectacled man, who seemed to shrink beneath Poirot's scrutiny. "What did you witness? Surely you must have seen something." I arrived last, but I heard a noise, a scuffle mayhaps," Beckwith stammered, adjusting his glasses, his tone wavering between guilt and horror. "He spoke to us all hours before, telling a story of something he had hidden away. Something precious, he said." "Precious?" Poirot mused aloud, stroking his mustache. Was it gold, a jewel, or perhaps something even more sinister? He turned his piercing gaze towards Lady Harrington, who had remained, spectrally silent. "And you, my lady, knew Mr. Grayson well, did you not? You appear as if you carry a great weight of knowledge. What might that be?" Lady Harrington looked away, the shadows casting a peculiar intensity across her features, as if she bore unspoken truths. "He had enemies, a great many enemies," she admitted, her voice a rasp, echoing the very gravity of the night. "Adrian was a man who knew too much. The audacity, the sheer impertinence." Genevieve clutched the edge of her stole, her gaze darting to the fleeing storm beyond the windows, trying to escape the reality that had fastened itself like a vice upon them all. But who could do something so monstrous? We were only here for the weekend, a simple dinner. "The dinner," Poirot echoed, eyes narrowing thoughtfully. "It was to reveal, was it not? What truth, I wonder, would he unveil by the end of the evening? And yet it seems that such revelations have come at too high a cost." "Enough with your games, Poirot," Roger interjected, frustration building like a tempest. "Someone here is the murderer, and you do well to figure out who before we find ourselves as dead as he is." At that moment, light flickered ominously, plunging the room into shadows, a silhouette skimming the edges of the doorway behind Poirot. His instincts flared, and he turned sharply to confront an unseen presence, discovering nothing but the flutter of curtains in the wind. The crack of thunder split the air, reverberating through the room. But Poirot's attention was drawn to a small, white envelope that had slipped from the hidden recess of the door frame, now lying innocently on the floor. "Do you see that?" he called out, bending to retrieve the letter, his heart thumping in anticipation. As he opened the envelope, his fingers quickly followed the strokes of delicate handwriting, revealing a cryptic message that sent a thrill of alarm through him. "The truth lies buried in the shadows, and beware, for death's gathering is not yet complete." Before he could call for calm, the gathering erupted, with fear palpable like the heat of the storm outside, when suddenly an abrupt crash resonated through the manor, a guttural scream following it. Poirot's breath caught. The curtain of reality had been lifted, and the depths of darkness were spilling into the light. The very foundation of sanity and familiarity trembled as Poirot moved toward the sound, resolve tightening around his spine. Whatever awaited him on the other side of that door, he would confront it head-on. Chapter 2. A Murder in Bloom. The door swung open to reveal a sight that momentarily froze Hercule Poirot where he stood. Lord Alistair Farnsworth, the well-regarded host, lay sprawled across his richly appointed study, a pool of crimson pooling beneath him like a dark, grotesque flower, the scent of violets mingling disturbingly with the metallic tang of blood. The gaslight flickered, casting erratic shadows that danced across the elegant wallpaper, and outside, thunder rumbled ominously as, though nature itself bore witness to the horror unfolding within the walls of Lysander Manor. A shrill scream pierced the air as the sole remaining guest, Miss Eleanor Farrow, staggered backwards from the threshold. He's dead," she gasped, hands trembling, her voice a raw whisper pregnant with disbelief. "Lord Alistair, how could this happen? We were just dining moments ago." "Indeed," Poirot replied, his mind already whirring with the implications of what lay before him. He stepped into the room, his polished shoes barely making a sound on the carpet, the fabric almost swallowing the noise. A fine dinner interrupted, and yet The conclusion presents itself all too dramatically. Inside the study, the atmosphere thickened with tension as the others, still gathered in the hallway, craned their necks to peer in. Poirot gestured for them to join, and soon Charles Beckwith, the tormented writer with ink-stained fingers, and the exotic Genevieve Lear cautiously stepped inside, their expressions becoming ghostly white at the sight of the body. Roger Wykeham, sporting a look of incredulity, remained rooted in place, his arm crossed defensively over his chest. "What is this madness?" Wykeham's voice cracked. "We are marooned in this dark abyss, with an assassin among us, it seems. Do not cast rampant suspicion upon our host's guests, my friend," Poirot stated, his eyes scanning the room with unnerving focus. "Instead, let us unravel the threads of this fabric together. We must discern how a man was murdered within these four walls, locked as they are." He moved closer to the body, kneeling beside Alistair, who wore an expression of astonishment rather than fear, as if he had been puzzled by some unfathomable riddle before his life was extinguished. "Ah, the violets," Poirot murmured, glancing at the peculiarly arranged flowers strewn around the room, their vivid hue stark against the oppressive surroundings. Something about their placement incited a flicker of unease deep within him, a clue waiting to be noticed if only he could properly align the intricate details. "A bouquet upon his deathbed?" Miss Farrow interjected with a shudder, moving closer to Poirot, her brow knitting with confusion. "Do you think he invited death with such beauty?" "Beauty can often disguise the most terrible intentions," Poirot replied, straightening up as he caught sight of a note partially tucked behind a cluster of violets. He retrieved it, his delicate fingers brushing against the petal-soft blooms, and unfolded the paper, his brows furrowing as he read the neat, elegant script that seemed to mock the very air it breathed. "Bloom where you are planted, but beware, not all blossoms are kind." "Of all the ludicrous nonsense," Roger snorted dismissively, crossing his arms again. "A riddle delivered by a corpse. Does it not strike you as preposterous, Poirot?" "Preposterous indeed, but figments can reveal truths," Poirot countered, glancing up at each suspect with intensity. "There are no signs of forced entry, and every one of you claims to have been here together for the entirety of dinner. Yet here lies Lord Alistair, his last smile eclipsed by death. Someone amongst you. We cannot remain here. This place is cursed," Genevieve cried, the fire of panic igniting in her hazel eyes. "We must leave at once." "Not before we understand what is at stake," Poirot insisted, his voice laced with authority. "Each of your alibis must be scrutinized, for it is clear the murderer had a hand in executing this treachery artfully, leaving naught but a blood-soaked canvas. In the locked study, what does it matter what we claim?" Beckwith's brow furrowed, a flicker of something unrecognizable shadowing his features. "I arrived here late, only to find him like this. Is there nothing more for me to say?" "Perhaps," Poirot began, lowering his voice as he leaned in closer, his gaze sharp. "But tell me, Monsieur Beckwith, is it true that you had been struggling with your latest tome? Perchance your frustration led to some ugly contest of words with your host. Perhaps it drove you to much darker hours." "No," Beckwith stammered, startled by Poirot's unfurling insinuations. "I would never. He was my friend after all." "Then why do I sense something unsaid, broiling just beneath your surface?" Poirot mused, directed his focus towards each guest in turn, capturing their expressions. "Perhaps Lady Constance Harrington could illuminate the matter as well? You oft appeared chagrined tonight, Did Lord Alistair speak of matters troubling, secrets ripe for exposure before you? Lady Harrington's eyes flickered like a flame caught in a draught as she glanced towards the violets. We all had secrets, Poirot, she replied cryptically, her quiet voice brittle with strain. Alistair had many enemies, many who would want him silenced. There it was, the crackle of tension sliding across the air like an electric charge as Poirot's mind raced to piece together these fractured hints. And then, having gathered her own composure, Eleanor exhaled sharply to break the silence. We need to call the police. Surely we must leave now. If this is all a game to you, Poirot, I shall not be a part of it. Indeed, it is not a game, Poirot snapped back. Yet too quickly he quashed the rising tide of frustration within him, feeling the enormity of what had happened wash over them. But you're missing sandals, Miss Farrow. His voice dipped as he gestured toward a corner where footsteps opened onto the polished wood, leading into the depths of the manor. It appears there is still a way to gamble upon this dark mystery. Their eyes fell upon that trail leading away, the implication snagging like a thorn in the air. One of you possesses unfinished business, something begging to be uncovered, Poirot declared, a new resolve igniting within him. And it is in the hidden corners of this manor that we may find our answers, or rather that which allows death to clothe itself deceivingly in beauty. With a sudden crash, the lights flickered once more, plunging the room into an unsettling darkness. Before the guests could react, the distant wail of sirens pierced the stormy night, echoing through the manor like a spectre pursuing them. The atmosphere became leaden, the air thickening around them. Poirot gripped the note tightly, pieces of a terrifying puzzle colliding in his mind when suddenly a shadow flitted past the door frame, a figure disappearing into the inky blackness beyond. "Stay here," he commanded, thrusting open the door to the hallway, just in time to witness the cautious silhouette retreating around the corner. Heart pounding, Poirot took off after it, determination coursing through his veins. "Stop! Where are you going?" The only response was the fading echo of retreating footsteps, leaving Poirot on the precipice of revelation. The truth of murder in bloom, tantalizingly close, yet as elusive as the shimmering petals that had heralded this tragic night. Chapter 3. The Unmarked Letter. The moment Hercule Poirot laid his napkin down, the scream of the maid pierced the heavy air of the dining room, sending a jolt through his finely tuned senses. "Monsieur Poirot, you must," she gasped, her hands trembling as she desperately pointed to the unmarked envelope perched precariously at his place setting. As he reached for it, the maid lunged forward, her panic igniting a sense of urgency that crackled like the storm outside. In that instant, the envelope slipped from his fingers, fluttering to the floor, and before he could act, she snatched it away, her eyes wide with fear. "Stop! What is the meaning of this?" Poirot demanded, the weight of the evening's events pressing heavily upon him. The maelstrom of horror still lingered in the air following Alistair's murder, and now another mystery threatened to unfurl in his hands. The maid's face was ashen, her breath coming in short gasps as she clutched the envelope to her chest, as if it were a secret too dark to share. "Please, you must understand. It was just delivered, and she stammered, her voice cracking, urgency eclipsing her composure. It said to keep it from you. It was meant for someone else. Someone very important." Poirot's eyes narrowed. What did it contain? His mind raced with possibilities. A warning? A confession? The maid was on the verge of spilling the delicate unfurling secrets when the distant rumble of thunder echoed like a warning bell, making her flinch. "Nothing," Nothing. I cannot, she cried, the firelight casting flickering shadows on her frightened face. It was meant for Lord Farnsworth. Months ago he refused to acknowledge it. Dangerous business, I think. Poirot's heart sank and soared in tandem. A plea for help? An ominous threat? The shadows of Lysander Manor seemed to dance even more feverishly as he pieced together the possibility that Alistair had not only faced the spectre of death, but had perhaps been battling unseen dangers well before his demise. "Return it to me," he insisted, his voice firm, yet urgent. But the maid's resolve flickered like the candlelight, and with a vivid hesitation, she spun on her heel and fled, the envelope clutched tight. In that heartbeat, Poirot understood. Something crucial had slipped through his fingers. He darted after her, his polished shoes making swift, stealthy advances across the opulent wooden floor, but as he reached the archway, she had vanished down, corridor. The house heaved around him, the sensibility of its stately beauty mocking the terror that had spiraled within its walls. His heart raced as he whipped around, half expecting to find her lingering just out of sight, perhaps recovering some composure to confess. Yet the corridor lay silent, the air heavy, as if it were holding its breath. "Everyone," he called out, summoning the other guests who remained perched between fear and disbelief in the dining room. Their faces were as puzzled as he was. "We have another player in this deadly game. Alistair's death may not be the only shadow lurking within these walls." A ripple of tension coursed through their features, suspicion flickering in the candlelight. "Enough of this theatrics, Poirot," Roger Wickham scoffed, pushing himself forward. "What is this now? Another riddle to amuse yourself with? We need answers, not your cryptic poetry." "Answers, yes, and they lie in the shadows," Poirot retorted sharply, intensity radiating from him as he surveyed the group. "But we must stay together. The maid may yet carry too great a burden. Beyond her fear lies the truth of Lord Alistair's affairs." The group murmured, glancing furtively at one another. Eleanor Farrow, her earlier panic simmering beneath her surface, wore a mask of steely resolve. "Are we to sit idle while this dark puppet master lurks? What will be the next calamity that befalls us? We must prepare, for we are embroiled far deeper than we thought." Moments ticked by with a disquieting weight, the shadows lengthening as another crash of thunder rattled the windows, setting the contents of a nearby table trembling. Poirot stepped toward the nearest table, glancing at the last remnants of dinner. "What you speak of is precisely what I have feared since Lord Alistair was found in this manner. A recluse, a host to dark alliances. I must uncover who held sway over him, who stood to gain from his demise." As he turned back to address them, a piercing shriek shattered the air from somewhere within the house. Everyone stilled, eyes darting toward the source of the sound, and Poirot's heart dropped as he realized the implications. "Stay here," he commanded, charging down the shaft of darkness despite their hesitant whispers. The rushing shadows welcomed him with open arms as he sprinted along the corridor, each step resonating with an urgency that transcended the panic gripping the manor. The scream had come from the east wing, and as Poirot approached, the air grew heavier with tension, the atmosphere thick with dread. Just as he reached the door, it swung open with a slow creak, revealing Genevieve Lear, her face pale and streaked with terror as she came stumbling out. "Poirot, it's the maid. Someone's taken her." Her voice sliced through the night like a dagger, and Poirot felt his insides tighten like a snare. Before he could respond, the reflection of something glinted in the gaslight, a half-crumpled letter lying, discarded at their feet, an unmistakable mark leading back to the unmarked envelope. As he reached down, adrenaline surged through him, and with a swift motion, he grasped the letter while Genevieve swayed beside him. "What does it say?" she entreated breathlessly, but as Poirot unfurled it, cold terror gripped him anew, for the words on the page were even more enigmatic than before, cryptic threats intermingling with strange sigils, begging for an answer he did not yet possess. The tension, the air split wide open, intertwining with the storm outside, as Poirot looked deep into Genevieve's eyes, realization dawning that the stakes had risen higher than ever. "We must," he began, but the words hung as a distant crashing sound resonated through the house, footsteps echoing from behind, heavy and ominous. Then, from the corner of his eye, a shadow darted past the doorway, a figure weaving back into the darkness. "Stop!" Poirot bellowed, but the figure vanished before him, swallowed whole by the depths of the night. Desperation clawed within him, for before him lay the pieces of a puzzle that promised not only peril, but secrets long buried and avenues of the unknown. As panic swirled around him, Hercule Poirot clenched the letter tightly in his hand, sensing that the chaos had only just begun to manifest its deadly designs. The high stakes of Lysander Manor had become a cruel game, and he, ever the master of deduction, was determined to seize the narrative before it slipped away into the shadows once more. Chapter 4. The Will That Was Never Signed. A muffled scream erupted from the east wing, pulling through the labyrinth of Lysander Manor like a knife through flesh, sending a shudder through Poirot's core. Panic washed over him as he darted towards the source. The gaslight, flickering ominously in the corridor, creating dancing shadows that echoed the chaos building within the estate. He had scarcely entered the dark embrace of the hallway when he collided with Eleanor Farrow, her face pale and taut as she pressed a trembling hand to her lips, stifling a desperate cry. "The letter! It's gone!" she gasped, her voice quaking with fear as she stared at him, wide-eyed. "What do you mean? What letter?" Poirot demanded, urgency clawing at his throat. The ominous ambience of the house thickened around them, almost suffocating. He had not recovered from the shock of the maid's disappearance when another secret began to unfurl itself, coiling like a serpent, ready to strike. The maid. She was going to reveal something crucial to us. I overheard her mentioning a will that Lord Alistair had never signed. Something about disinheriting someone. Eleanor whispered urgently, glancing nervously over her shoulder, as if she feared the walls themselves were listening. Disinheriting? Who? Did she mention names? Poirot pressed, his mind racing with implications, the gears of his little grey cells spinning furiously. The very notion that Alistair had been embroiled in a family feud, compounded with his untimely death, sent a ripple of exhilaration through Poirot, albeit tainted with dread. She wouldn't say. She said she was too afraid to speak. Eleanor trembled, her composure unraveling like a tightly wound spool. But I saw her speaking with Roger Wykeham earlier. I believe he's hiding something. Poirot's eyes narrowed as he considered Roger, whose arrogance painted him as a figure of menace amidst the ensemble of guests. Indeed, it is a possibility, mademoiselle, that he knows more than he lets on. The thunder growled outside, as if echoing the rising storm of deception brewing within the house. What shall we do? We must find out who this will benefits or threatens, she exclaimed, her fear turning into fervor, a fire igniting amidst the shadows. Before Poirot could respond, a heavy footfall resonated through the hallway, followed by the unmistakable figure of Roger Wycombe emerging from the depths of the darkness. His face was impossibly calm, too calm as he approached with purpose. "Ah, Poirot, Faro," he said, his voice smooth, yet tinged with an unsettling undertone. "What appears to be the issue here? A character in our midst has vanished, and we are seeking answers, perhaps even who possesses the missing will that has been on the verge of surfacing," Poirot retorted sharply, gauging Roger's reaction like a hawk circling above. "A will? That's simply preposterous," Roger barked, his eyes flaring with indignation that Poirot recognized as an anxious mask. "Lord Farnsworth's affairs are none of your business. You're simply fishing for tales in dark water." "Fishing, mon cher? Fishing is not the only technique one may use in search of truth," Poirot countered smoothly, noting the twitch of Roger's jaw. "You would do well to indulge my inquiries instead of drowning in your own deception." Eleanor moved a step closer to Poirot, emboldened by his confidence. "It may shock you, Mr. Wycombe, but rumors suggest that Alistair was about to— Rumors? Mere shadows cast in light of tragedy." Roger cut her off, his voice rising with defensiveness. "You would do well to dismiss them." Poirot noted Roger's mounting frustration and the slight bead of sweat that glistened on his brow, a sign that despite all his bravado, he was far from composed. "But shadows often hide the truth, n'est-ce pas?" Poirot interjected, tilting his head. "Thus, we must shine our light." Just then, a crash echoed down the corridor, followed by the unmistakable clatter of furniture, forcing both men to momentarily divert their focus. Poirot's instincts kicked in. This house was turning into a nest of secrets, and the players were becoming more volatile by the minute. Steeling himself, Poirot motioned toward the east wing, where the chaos had originated. "We must move swiftly, for our quarry may lie in ambush." He led Eleanor and Roger toward the source. As they reached a door swung ajar, the air within felt thick like fog, obscuring their senses. Poirot entered first, scanning the room for any sign of the maid or what had been disturbed hastily. A candle flickered to life as Eleanor joined him, illuminating a scene of disarray. Books and papers lay strewn about, the remnants of a struggle. A solitary shoe lay on the ground, a gaudy red heel unmistakably belonging to the missing maid. "This is impossible. She would never leave this behind," Eleanor murmured, her eyes welling with tears as she trembled at the implications. "Indeed," Poirot replied, crouching down to collect the shoe. "A reminder that alibis are fragile, and desperation ignites more than fear." At that moment, a rattle and clatter echoed from a nearby armchair. They turned to find Genevieve Lear emerging from the shadows, her face pale and marked with panic. "I've just seen— I know where she is. The maid is hidden, but there's more. Alistair's will—" But as she spoke, a figure lurked in the doorway, partially obscured by darkness. A flash of recognition jolted through Poirot. "Who's there?" he demanded, eyes narrowing. In the blink of an eye, the figure bolted, a muffled laugh trailing behind them, a voice that resonated with mocking clarity. "You think you can uncover every mystery, Poirot? You'll soon find the truth buried far deeper than you realize." Poirot surged forward, but the figure was already gone, swallowed by the labyrinthine corridors of the manor, their laughter echoing ominously behind them, mingling with the thunder that raged outside. "Get back!" Eleanor yelled, but Poirot had already plunged into the shadows, chasing after the spectre that danced just beyond reach, a dark revelation looming as he felt the boundaries of his investigation stretching taut, ready to snap. The storm outside seemed to mirror the turmoil within, as the tension escalated, the question of a missing will becoming ever more fraught with danger. "Who is it, Poirot?" Eleanor gasped, breathless with fear, but before he could respond, the air shifted sharply, the storm lightening in its menace, foreboding with whispered secrets. In the back of his mind, Poirot sensed the hands of fate tightening their grip, ready to unveil hidden truths that held the power to shatter everything. The missing will, the lost maid, and the very lives entwined within the sinister labyrinth of Lysander Manor. Chapter 5. The Woman in the Garden. A sudden gasp pierced through the thunderous downpour, rising like a wail from the depths of despair. Hercule Poirot, just outside the grounds of Lysander Manor, froze, his heart echoing the frantic cadence of the storm. He had been contemplating the implications of the missing maid's shoe when the sound reached him, a woman's cry, caught somewhere between anguish and horror. The garden, cloaked in shadows and rain, beckoned him like the harbinger of dark secrets. With quickening steps, Poirot navigated the overgrown garden, its ivy-clad statues and gnarled trees, lending an aura of foreboding. Each squelch of mud beneath his polished shoes seemed to amplify his urgency, drawing him closer to the heart of the disturbance. He breached the threshold of lilies, their petals drenched and heavy, as he spotted a figure, a woman, collapsed among the foliage, her aura a chilling contrast to the vibrant blooms surrounding her. "Madame," Poirot called, rushing forward as the woman raised her face, streaked with tears and fear. It was Genevieve Lear, her expression torn between relaying dreadful news and succumbing to despair. "You must help me, Poirot. The maid, I've seen her." Her voice trembled like the flickering gas lamps inside the manor, desperate yet steady enough to etch urgency into his mind. The storm raged on as he knelt beside her, his instincts flaring as he examined her pallor. "Mon Dieu, calm yourself. Tell me, what is it you have seen? Where is the maid?" He took her trembling hands in his brow furrowing in concentration, as the weight of her fear settled upon him like a shroud. She's not far from here. I walked through the garden to clear my mind when I saw her. To the east, deeper in the maze of shrubs. But there's more, Poirot. The storm unearths things, unearths truth." She gasped, a sharp intake of breath, as she glanced nervously at the thick hedge line. As they moved further into the garden, Poirot's gaze narrowed, taking in the overgrown pathways, some so well hidden that they seemed mere figments of the imagination. A latent tension thrummed in the air, as if the very garden was coiling with dark energy, waiting to envelop them. "What truth, madame? Speak clearly," he urged her, pushing through a curtain of heavy leaves. "It's about Alistair. He was worried about something, about a woman, the very woman who is supposed to have been disinherited. Before everything went awry, he said he would meet her here, a hidden spot beneath the biggest willow. It frightens me, Poirot. I think we may uncover something unspeakable." Before she could finish, a rustling sound erupted from a nearby thicket, interrupting the fragile exchange. Poirot's heart raced as he motioned for Genevieve to stay back. With careful precision, he approached the sound, glancing over his shoulder to ensure she remained behind him. The scent of damp earth mixed with the perfume of the wilting flowers, wrapping him in an almost oppressive embrace. Emerging from the shadows, he reached a tangled knot of bushes and paused, sensing a presence close by, though he saw nothing. "Is anyone there?" Poirot called, his voice firm as a flash of lightning illuminated the desolate corner of the garden. The moment hung heavy in the air, filled with a kaleidoscope of unspoken fears and expectations. In that instant, a figure slipped from the other side, a man cloaked and drenched, his features obscured by the shroud of the storm. Poirot barely registered the outline before the figure bolted, retreating deeper into the labyrinth of greenery. "Stop!" Poirot shouted, the thunder roaring with indignation. He sprang forward, legs pumping, as he chased after the shadow that darted deeper into the garden, using the scattering light between the branches to guide his pursuit. The figure twisted and turned with the grace of a deer, each movement echoing with mockery. "Come back, I demand you." His voice thundered above the chaos, but the figure seemed a spectre, slipping through the shadows like smoke. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the chase halted. Poirot skidded to a stop, scanning the surroundings. Where had he gone? The rain fell heavier now, mixing with the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Breathing heavily, Poirot thought frantically, casting every possible explanation through the labyrinth of his mind, when Genevieve's voice brought him back to their dire predicament. "Poirot, look," she called from behind him, a tremor in her voice. He turned, heart plummeting, as he saw her kneeling near the very willow she had mentioned, its gnarled branches swaying like ethereal fingers beckoning him closer. As he approached, he noticed what had piqued her concern, a glinting object nestled among mossy roots, half hidden in the soil. He bent down, brushing away the grime with one hand, revealing a small locket, its surface dulled with age but unmistakably embellished. With a sharp intake of breath, he opened it. Inside were two photographs. One was of a woman whose face radiated a sorrow that seemed to echo across time, and the other was a familiar face that sent a chill down his spine. Lord Alistair Farnsworth himself. Before he could process the implications, Genevieve gasped again, this time in horror. "Poirot, behind you." He spun around, just in time to witness a shadowy figure emerging from the depths of the garden, their intentions veiled but charged with malevolence. A hoarse voice cut through the rain. "You are meddling in matters far above your station, Poirot. Step away now, or face the consequences." As the figure rushed forward, a treacherous arc gleamed in the descending darkness, a knife glinting ominously in the gloom. Poirot's heart raced, every instinct screaming at him to act. With the knowledge of 1,000 mysteries coursing through his mind, he had only a split second to respond. The treacherous secrets of Lysander Manor swirling around him like the storm, and he realized then that they had merely touched the surface of deceit. Only time would tell whether it would be the last secret he ever unraveled. Chapter 6. The Vanishing Heir. A scream sliced through the looming shadows of Lysander Manor, a sound so raw with terror that it sent a shiver down Hercule Poirot's spine. He stood frozen in the candlelit hallway, the light flickering and swaying as if it too trembled at the noise. The scream belonged to Eleanor, piercing and desperate, echoing with the finality of a gunshot. "Poirot! Roger's gone! He's vanished!" Her frantic words tumbled over one another as she rushed down the corridor, her face pale, eyes wide with fear. Poirot's mind raced with the implications. Within hours of unraveling the chaos surrounding the missing maid, another piece of the family puzzle had disappeared, and this time it wasn't simply a solitary shoe left behind. Without hesitation, Poirot followed Eleanor through the dimly lit rooms, filled with the cacophony of the raging storm outside. The atmosphere seemed charged with malice, the air thick with the secrets tightly woven into the fabric of Lysander Manor's history. He could still feel the echo of that dark figure who had taunted him mere moments earlier, their mocking challenge still ringing in his ears. Who had the most to gain from Roger's sudden disappearance? The sense of impending doom twisted his stomach, a sensation he knew all too well when shadows began to shift in the night. "Stay close, mademoiselle," Poirot commanded, his voice steady to mask the unease blossoming within him. They reached the edge of the drawing room, its heavy curtains billowing from the gusts of wind battering the windows. Eleanor halted abruptly, pointing a trembling finger towards the floor. Poirot crouched down, his keen eyes scanning the ground, where he discovered something, a heel mark pressed into the carpet, unmistakably of a man's shoe, leading out toward the garden. He left in haste, he observed, curiosity mixing with concern. But why would he venture outside in such a storm? Perhaps he knows something about the maid. Eleanor's voice cracked, the wretched turbulence of emotion coloring her words. He had been acting strangely since the will was discussed. "I fear something irreversible has happened." Poirot straightened, absorbing the psychological currents at play. "Then we must follow him. Quickly, but do not lose heart." They hurried through the door, stepping into the fray outside, the rain lashing relentlessly against their faces as they plunged into the chaos of darkness. The garden was a brooding wilderness, each shadow a potential concealment for secrets best left buried. As Poirot moved with Eleanor in tow, he noted the vividness of the storm around them, splashes of lightning illuminating the labyrinthine paths like fleeting truths wished to remain hidden. Heart-pounding, he ventured deeper into the garden, instinctively scanning for any sign of Roger. But the maelstrom of rain and wind conspired to obstruct his view. "Roger!" Poirot called, his voice swallowed by the storm's wrath. "Where are you?" An eerie silence followed, the wind's morning howl the only answer. Suddenly, he spotted something gleaming on the ground, an object barely noticeable amid the deluge. Poirot knelt, brushing away the sodden earth to uncover a silver pocket watch. Its glass face cracked, but familiar. Roger's. It lay ominously close to the base of the willow, the very same tree where Genevieve had unearthed the locket. "Poirot, look," Eleanor breathed, her voice faltering. What if he's hurt?" There was a crack in her composure, an unraveling that revealed the deep-seated fears gripping her heart. She stepped back slightly, trembling as her eyes darted around them, sensing the predatory gaze of uncertainty cloaked in darkness. The atmosphere had shifted, thickening with foreboding. Poirot remained focused, crafting each thought with precision, unhurried by the fusion of panic and rain swirling around them. "We must keep searching, Eleanor. Every moment counts." He turned to the tree, knowing instinctively that this location held a gravity beyond a mere watch, neglected in haste. At that moment, a figure appeared amidst the shadows, slumped against the trunk of the willow, drenched and still. Poirot rushed forward, heart racing as dread coursed through him. "Roger!" he exclaimed, kneeling beside the figure, but as he reached out, he hesitated. There was something wrong. Deep shadows blanketed the face, obscuring a pallid complexion. Poirot turned to lure Eleanor's attention away from the encroaching storm. But then, the air shifted again, a shift filled with acute horror. Roger was not simply unconscious, he was bound, a cloth gagged brutally against his mouth, eyes shining with panic as they locked onto Poirot's. "Stand back," Poirot warned, just as a shadow loomed from behind, emerging with a sinister grace. Another figure, cloaked and shadowy, all but melted into the moonlit darkness, spilling over the landscape. "What a shame to find you meddling again." "Poirot," the figure said, arms crossed, an unmuzzled glee dancing in their tone. "This is truly inconvenient." Every instinct screamed at Poirot as the figure brandished an object, an ominous glint revealing the unmistakable curve of a knife, wickedly poised, reflecting the chaos of the storm in its edges. "Let him go," Poirot commanded, the steadiness of his voice belying the rapid beat of his heart, sensing the peril of the moment. The figure glanced back at Roger, chuckling darkly. "I think you misunderstand, Poirot. He's not the one in danger. Just remember, truths can vanish into thin air, just as quickly as one air disappears." In an explosive moment, a piercing scream cut through the rain as Eleanor stumbled backward, her gaze blurring with confusion and fear. The figure edged closer to Roger, a deadly intent gleaming in their eyes, and Poirot's mind raced with calculations about their next move, the stakes spiraling higher by the second. Would this puzzle draw closed around him like a noose? With the shadows thickening more than ever before, the truth and its treachery loomed ever closer. What dark revelation awaited as they attempted to draw back the veil of ruin? Without a doubt, Poirot was running against time, knowing that the very life of an heir, and perhaps even worse, was hanging in the balance. Chapter 7. Shadows of Deceit. A sickening thud echoed through the dim halls of Lysander Manor, followed by an anguished cry that pierced the subsequent silence like a knife's edge. Hercule Poirot's breath hitched as he rushed into the library, finding Eleanor on her knees, her trembling fingers clutching a leather-bound tome that had fallen from the shelf. The room felt charged, the flickering candlelight casting erratic shadows that danced ominously across the walls, illuminating her ashen face, completely devoid of color. "Eleanor!" Poirot shouted, but she only gazed at the book, her expression a blend of horror and disbelief. "What is it?" he pressed, glancing around as if he might see the culprit who had wrought her distressed state. It's Lord Farnsworth's diary," she stammered, her voice shaking with unmentionable dread. "I didn't know it was here." Poirot knelt beside her, his sharp eyes scanning the text disarranged on the floor as she drew in uneven breaths. The storm, outside, still raging furiously against the windows. The leather was worn, its pages soft and yellowed, each curl telling silent stories of a man now shrouded in scandal and mystery. Lifting the volume delicately, Poirot felt an unsettling weight to it, as though the diary itself held secrets that begged to be unearthed. As he opened it, a loose page fluttered down, landing squarely in his palm. The hurried scrawl of Lord Farnsworth's handwriting roared with accusations and confessions, a tumultuous affair, a side of Lord Alistair that begged to correlate with his present turmoil. "I cannot reveal the truth," one entry read, "for I fear for my life. The connections I've unearthed are more dangerous than even the most seasoned player in the game." "What does it say?" Eleanor inquired, a look of desperation dawning inside her eyes. Many words, many truths not easily spoken. Poirot scanned the page once more before continuing, his voice low and deliberate. "He speaks of an affair with a woman whose identity remains concealed, and of betrayals that seem to ripple through these very walls like the storm outside." The intensity of his gaze met Eleanor's, and for a brief moment, the burdens they carried seemed to pulse between them, adding weight to the atmosphere. "I suspect we have no choice but to delve deeper into these shadows." Before he could continue, the door creaked open, revealing a figure, Genevieve, her hair disheveled, cutting into the gravity of the situation and bringing a jolt of tension with her arrival. "Poirot, I've seen something. You must come quickly." Her voice held a frantic urgency that stirred the air like the rising tide. "What is it?" he asked sharply as he exchanged a glance with Eleanor, whose demeanor shifted, her unease permeating the space. "Roger, he's awake. He's in the drawing room." "Awake?" Poirot repeated, memories of the last moments they had shared rushing back, the appearance of that shadowy figure, Roger bound and vulnerable. He rose swiftly, gesturing for Genevieve to lead the way, his mind racing with the implications. The danger was shifting, revealing new angles with each revelation. Bursts of lightning illuminated the stormy night as they made their way through the house, and with each step, Poirot felt the shivering anticipation that enveloped them. Were the walls widening to hold the new truths that lingered at the edges of consciousness? When they burst into the drawing room, Roger was propped up against the crimson damask, his expression bleary, yet filled with unspoken urgency. The moment they stumbled upon him, his eyes darted around the room like a trapped animal seeking an escape from its confines, and Poirot knew that whatever was clouding him was deeper than the physicality of anything they had encountered. "Roger, what happened?" Poirot's voice cut through the tension, steady yet pressing. Quickly assessing him, Poirot noticed the signs, the marks where ropes had bitten deep into flesh, the gag that now lay discarded. The young man quivered, his breaths short and erratic. I saw something. Someone is trying to silence the truth, all of it." "What truth, Roger?" Poirot asked, leaning closer, sensing panic vibrating off Roger's skin. "Is it about the maid?" "It's more than her. It's about Lord Farnsworth, his past. We are not who we think we are." He struggled against the surge of emotion building within him, as if he were grappling with the weight of revelation still left unsaid. "Roger," Eleanor gasped, her demeanor shifting into a defensive posture. "You cannot—" With a desperate outburst, Roger continued, "The diary. He was close to revealing it. There are connections that—" His voice trailed off, eyes narrowing, as he seemed to focus on an obscure corner of the room with a glare that spoke profound fear. Poirot followed his gaze as another crack of thunder shook the house, and before he could inquire further, the drawing-room door burst open. A figure lurched into the space, drenched to the bone and cloaked in dark, hanging fabric. Tension held them all breathless as the newcomer let their weight settle, staring fixedly at Roger. "You should have kept your mouth shut," the figure hissed, and Poirot's instincts blared like a siren in his mind. With an elegant swiftness, he moved to interject, but the figure lunged forward, reaching for Roger with striking speed. "Watch out!" Poirot shouted, adrenaline surging as Eleanor cried out. In that split second, all the pieces hung delicately in the balance, trust shattered, fear strung taut across the dimly lit room, and one final truth on the brink of unraveling. Would this be the moment wherein all truths cracked under the burden of deception? The knife glinted ominously as the figure advanced, and just as Poirot's mind raced through the possibilities, a scream erupted from Eleanor, a sound of pure terror, shattering everything wide open. The scene held its breath, poised at the edge of chaos, and Poirot braced for the tempest that was about to descend. The long-forgotten secrets of Lysander Manor were no longer contained within its crumbling walls, and one fateful question lingered heavy in the air. Who would emerge unscathed from the shadows of deceit? Chapter 8. The Hidden Room. The door flew open with a resounding crash, splintering the air with the force of a jolt. Poirot had barely time to process his next move before a trio of panicked figures rushed in, their faces alight with dread. At their center stood Roger, his eyes wild and red-rimmed, fear electrifying the very fabric of his being. "It's here! The knife! It was here!" he blurted, voice trembling, every word dripping with urgency. "Roger, what do you mean?" Poirot's voice cut through the storm, each syllable deliberate, summoning calmness to the chaos. As the gale howled outside, he felt a chill slice down his spine. A deep, primal understanding danced at the edges of his awareness, begging for elucidation. Roger swayed as if the very ground beneath him shifted. "Someone was here. I felt them. The shadow. I swear to you, it was watching," Roger choked out, breaths jagged and ethereal, mingling with the storm's fury. It was in the locked room. There was something they didn't want revealed. Eleanor moved closer, a tremor racking her body, as Genevieve's eyes darted between them, uncertainty writ large on her face. "The locked room," she echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. The words hung ominously in the air, heavy with the sense of concealed horrors just waiting to be exposed. "A room that should not exist," Poirot murmured with growing intrigue. In the diary, there was mention of a hidden passage, a secret meeting. His mind flickered back to the cryptic words penned in hurried strokes, each sentence pulsating with the remnants of past schemes and secrets. "We must find it. It could hold the truth." "No, you don't understand." Roger's voice escalated, a sheen of perspiration gathering on his brow. "It's dangerous. This is the heart of it, the very core of everything wrong with this family. Secrets that can shatter lives." Ignoring Roger, Poirot's gaze turned toward the ornate hallway, searching for clues. Everything within Lysander Manor seemed imbued with shadows that whispered of treachery. The flickering candlelight cast grotesque shapes upon the wallpaper, twisting tales of the residents who once inhabited the space. "Where is this chamber?" he demanded, ready for clues, his heart racing with the eternal dance of mystery that lay before him. A sudden crack of thunder illuminated the darkened corridor, and Roger flinched, a spark of skepticism in his eyes. I think it's behind the library. It's concealed. The wall is thin. You push it just so—" He pointed, voice faltering, the weight of those hidden revelations tangible in the air. "Then we shall find it," Poirot declared, striding forth with purpose. He ushered Eleanor and Genevieve behind him, Roger trailing with reluctant steps, haunted by the echoes of dread. As they reached the library, Poirot halted before the wall, the delicate traceries of wallpaper disrupted by layers of dust. Stone and wood merged invisibly, a threshold between the known and the forgotten. The air felt different here, suffused with the thick essence of anticipation. "Stand back," he instructed as he began to probe along the wall, fingers brushing lightly as he sought the invisible latch. With a gentle push and a satisfying click, a hidden door swung open, its hinges protesting with a hiss. Darkness loomed behind it. Poirot lit a match, the feeble flame illuminating steps spiraling down into the abyss. The faint tip of a musty odor threaded through his nostrils. Absence of light belied the secrets concealed deep within, and a single candle flickered to life at the foot of the staircase, casting twisted shadows that danced mockingly across the stone walls. "Do we dare?" Genevieve's voice trembled as the candle cast her features into sharp relief, underscoring her fear. Poirot turned, steely determination in his gaze. We must, for the truth is always more perilous when left unexamined. The group descended, each footfall heavy with unanswered questions, uncertainty binding them closer. As they entered the chamber, a shocking sight met their eyes. The remnants of a clandestine meeting lay sprawled across a large, dust-covered table, a stack of papers scribbled on with erratic handwriting, littered with frantic diagrams, and a single photograph juxtaposed among them, depicting a woman with familiar features, a young version of Eleanor's mother. Poirot's sharp mind absorbed the implications, isolated moments splintered in time, converging upon this very place. "Eleanor, this is your mother," he exclaimed, thrusting the photograph toward her. Who knew she was linked to these dealings? Mystification crossed Eleanor's face, but before she could respond, a low, mocking laughter resonated from the shadows of the room. A figure, concealed in a dark overcoat, stepped from the recesses, their features obscured under a brimmed hat. The atmosphere thickened, almost liquid, as though the very structure of the manor held its breath. "Ah, Poirot," the figure crooned, reveling in the moment, a dangerous glint in their eye. "You have reveled in your curiosity long enough, but I fear your journey ends here." With swift dexterity, they drew forth a menacing glint from within their coat, a dagger, its blade shimmering with an ominous sheen. "None must know the truth, least of all you." "Stop!" Poirot's voice rang out, commanding and centered as the tension surged to a boiling point. The air thrummed with potential violence, adrenaline, electrifying his very core as they held their breath collectively, suspended at the precipice of revelation and danger. Just then, outside the walls of Lysander Manor, the storm erupted in a cacophony of thunder, a crack so ferocious it ruptured the darkened sanctity of the room, momentarily blinding Poirot as he adjusted to the vivid flash and the sound reverberating like the unmistakable toll of doom. In that heartbeat, the figure hesitated, and Poirot seized the moment, countering instinctively as he lunged forward, intent on disarming the threat and uncovering the truth that lay in shadows too long concealed. However, the figure slanted aside with an agile twist, darting toward an escape as the room transformed into a frantic chase. "Stop! Don't you dare!" he shouted as the figure dashed like a wisp of smoke. But in that frenetic moment, an echo became a scream, a piercing cry that carved through the tempest, ringing in Poirot's ears as he raced after the truth, now lost. In the chaos, the swirling shadows promising that certain revelations would not come easily and lurking danger awaited around every corner. Chapter 9. A Sudden Confession. A chilling voice split the gathering, reverberating through the dimly lit room. I killed him." The proclamation dropped like a stone into water, sending ripples of shock across the faces of the assembled guests, who turned as one toward the trembling figure of Genevieve. Her eyes gleamed with a frenzied luster, fear and guilt intertwining in a grotesque dance as her confession hung in the air like the scent of burnt candle wax, intermingling with the odor of damp earth. A sudden clap of thunder outside punctuated her words, vibrating deep within the marrow of the old manor as if echoing her guilty claim. Poirot remained composed, his keen mind instantly kicking into action. "Mon Dieu, Mademoiselle Genevieve, you must clarify," he urged, his voice steady yet laced with urgency. "What precisely do you mean by that dreadful admission?" He took a step closer, his discerning gaze locked onto her, searching for the fragments of truth hidden behind layers of terror and despair. Genevieve staggered backward, pressing herself against the wall as if it could absorb her horror. "It was an accident, I swear. I never meant to—" Her breath quickened, palpable in the thick air. He was reaching for the blade. I pushed him away, but he fell. And the knife— oh God, the knife! Her voice splintered into incoherence. Poirot's grave countenance remained inscrutable as he surveyed the gathering. Roger's face drained of color, while Eleanor, now pale and tense, flickered between disbelief and compassion. Surprisingly, it was Roger who took a step forward, his voice shaky. "Genevieve, are you sure? We all know the tension between you and Lord Farnsworth was complicated." "Complicated?" Genevieve shot back, her dark hair falling over her face like a veil. "He wasn't just my employer. He wanted to suffocate the life out of me, but it was his hopes that died that fateful night." She shook her head, grappling with her tumultuous emotions, a tempest of regret swirling in her eyes. "He was a monster in disguise, and I had had enough." Roger's brow furrowed further, and he retreated into contemplation, eyes unfocused as pieces fell into place. Poirot's brow knit with intensity. "Mon cher, this does not align," he murmured, folding his arms contemplatively. "Why the sudden confession? And why now? Just hours ago, you were in hiding, too gripped with fear to speak out. What prompted this outburst in the wake of our discoveries?" The room trembled with a heavy silence, thick with unsaid words. Genevieve swallowed hard, her throat constricting. I've been living within the shadows of his deceit long enough. When Roger spoke of the diary and the secrets, it was as if a dam broke within me. I couldn't let it remain hidden, not any longer. The truth can rid us of the ghosts of this house, even those that haunt me. Despite her fervent words, Poirot remained skeptical. "But you claim it was an accident," he pressed, studying her, every reaction. "What if it is but the surface of a much darker secret? Do you believe that everything ends there?" "Then what do you propose?" she shot back, the raw desperation in her voice striking a chord deep within Poirot. "That I planned it. How could I have possibly known? I loved him," she gasped, despair spilling forth unabated. "But he betrayed me. I found his secrets, diaries detailing his schemes, insolence toward everyone he claimed to care for." Roger interjected, pained disbelief evident in his voice. "He thought he could silence us all, but this confession changes everything. It could save us." "Perhaps," Poirot conceded, still sharply observant. "But I only sense more entwined shadows lurking in your narrative. Did you not just mention that regarding the diary? What of its contents?" Eleanor, standing rigid beside Poirot, finally spoke up, her voice trembling yet steady. "If there's something we're not seeing, Poirot, we need to understand it. We can't afford for Genevieve to be a pawn in whatever is about to unfurl." Outside, another crack of thunder shook the air, resonating with disquiet, as if the very walls of Lysander Manor were voicing their pending doom. Poirot's gaze narrowed, the connections fluttering in his mind like startled birds. "We will speak further," he reassured softly. "But first, has anyone in this room, anyone at all, ever sat with Lord Farnsworth outside the set expectations? Was there anyone else present during that confrontation?" No one met his eyes. The weight of their collective silence dropped like lead. It was Genevieve who broke first, her voice shaking with a mix of resolve and horror. "He had a visitor the evening he died. I saw shadows through the curtains. There were whispers of an unsanctioned meeting." Poirot's heart raced with the urgency of revelation. You must tell me, who was this visitor? Did you see their face? I didn't see a face, only the outline. They were cloaked, impossible to discern. But I saw him hand over something, a stack of papers, documents he claimed held the truth of his dealings. Before Poirot could respond, a sound echoed ominously from the hallway, a muffled thud, followed by the unmistakable scrape of a chair against wood. The tension crackled anew, hearts quickening in the dim light. "What was that?" Eleanor whispered, eyes wide, uncertainty flashing across her features. Poirot motioned, signaling silence. The atmosphere swelled, thick with portent. "Stay close," he commanded, moving toward the doorway with the precision of a watchmaker, his senses sharpened. As he stepped into the hall, shadows flickered. Just beyond, a figure lurched, only to vanish in a sweep of darkness. Pulsing adrenaline urged Poirot onward, when suddenly a candle flickered beside him, revealing the glint of something metallic on the floor. A key. "Stop!" he shouted, just as the figure darted into the obscurity. Panic surged. "Who are you? Identify yourself." There was no response, just the flutter of retreating footsteps echoing against the parched wood. The door behind him, now awash in darkness. "Hurry! We must not let them escape!" Poirot shouted, racing toward the sound, his heart pounding in synchrony with the pulse of the storm outside. As he reached the threshold, another loud crash reverberated through the manor, sending shards of crystal scattering from their once secure perches, the echo of colliding truths cascading all around them. And as the shadows danced wildly, it became painfully clear they were not as alone as they had believed. Someone was watching, and the game had only just begun, the intersection of secrets and shadows spinning out of control. The tightening noose around Lysander Manor's dark secrets promised one final confrontation, and Poirot would invoke every ounce of his little grey cells to cut through the web before the light of day emerged. Chapter 10. The Final Game. A scream tore through the manor, shattering the increasingly electric tension as Eleanor stumbled backward, her face pale and eyes wide. "No, no." She clutched at the door frame as if the very structure of Lysander Manor might provide sanctuary from the chaos that had been unleashed. Poirot's heart raced as he whipped around to face the door just as it swung open with agonizing slowness. The figure, cloaked and shadowed, lingered in the threshold, catching the flickering light of a nearby candle. Rain lashed against the window panes, the storm's fury echoing the turmoil within. But it was the glint of steel in the intruder's hand that paralyzed the room. A weapon, its edge menacingly sharp. "Enough of this charade," a voice cut through the air, cold and devoted. There stood the figure, the brim of their hat casting dark shadows over their features, but Poirot felt the unmistakable aura of danger radiating from them like heat from a furnace. "You have meddled long enough." "Who are you?" Poirot broke in, summoning his resolve. Each word was deliberate, the firm observation piercing through the atmosphere of mayhem. "What is it you seek in this house of secrets?" A man stepped forward, revealing the pale gleam of a face littered with doubt and rage. "You are too clever for your own good, Poirot. Always probing, always seeking truth. This time, you will find nothing but your end." Eleanor gasped, her hand flying to her mouth in horror. "Please, you don't have to do this. We can discuss." "Discuss?" The intruder's laughter was grim, echoing around the hall with foreboding echoes. "You think reasoned negotiation is what has kept you alive? What truth can you hope to uncover when the only thing that matters is silence? In that heartbeat of realization, Poirot's mind whirred like a finely tuned clock. Is that the essence of these dealings? Silence? Protecting your own secrets while spilling others? A flicker of recognition crossed his face, and he turned sharply towards Genevieve, who still stood frozen at the edge of the room. You knew, didn't you? You felt the weight of his secrets, but fear drove you to conceal, rather than revealing the truth. I was afraid, Genevieve's voice broke, desperation flooding her tone. I didn't know how deep the darkness ran, Lord Farnsworth's conflicts. I didn't want anyone else to suffer. But it is suffering that binds us all, non? Poirot countered, his eyes darting between the intruder and Genevieve, sensing the frayed bonds of connection tightening. The ticking clock hung heavily on the wall, as if mirroring the race against time. And you, sir, he gestured firmly, you delight in this chaos, do you not? This shadow play that leaves us only with fear. The intruder's smile was a flash of white amidst shadows, lit by a cruel amusement. Fear is my ally, Poirot. It sharpens purpose. Purpose? Poirot's gaze narrowed, the pieces within the puzzle igniting. Or is it merely panic concealed behind your charm? Is that your motive for wanting to silence Eleanor's mother's past? The connections, the deceit, it all threads back to one unmistakable truth, does it not? You believe that she hid something potentially devastating. Enough games, the intruder surged forward, brandishing the knife threateningly. I won't be toyed with by your infernal deductions. The only truth that matters remains hidden. In that moment, the storm raged louder outside, and the shadows across the room seemed to expand. Poirot knew he could only manipulate their confrontation to his advantage. Then let us unmask this truth together, he said, amplifying the urgency in his voice. Let us lay bare your fears. Let the world observe this facade of yours that must inevitably crumble. But the figure jerked, eyes glinting with panic and determination conflated into a formidable force. You haven't the slightest idea, Poirot. You don't know what you're asking. Revenge takes many forms, and I will not allow you to ruin my final play. Before he could even respond, the intruder lunged. Poirot sidestepped with his usual agility, taut muscles coiling like a spring as he assessed every move, every intention in the gleam of the knife. "Stop!" Eleanor shouted in a sudden fit of clarity. "You don't have to hurt anyone. We're all trapped in this nightmare together." "Trapped? Is that what you believe?" the figure retorted, outrage flickering within him like a candle's flame, caught in a draught. "I am not trapped. This is liberation. The lacing of lies must end now." Poirot seized the moment, diving with precision into the fray. "Then reveal yourself completely. Finish this dance of shadows once and for all." He thrust forth a finger toward the others, rallying them as an audience, declaring, "Do not let fear root you in silence. Stand with me against this malevolence." As unexpected courage welled within the room, the intruder faltered slightly, confusion rippling through the tension as he processed this newfound unity. In a crucial second of revelation, Poirot caught sight of a photograph hanging askew on the wall, one that had been obscured from his view moments earlier. It had slipped partially from its frame, revealing a cascade of documents crumpled behind. A stack of papers, similar to those Genevieve had mentioned, fluttering at the edge of a dark truth. Poirot's grey cells raced, recognizing potential evidence looming where no one had yet dared look. It was enough to re-engage the figure's ferocity. A growl escaped their lips. "You will never find it. You will never touch the truth." Poirot's gaze flicked back to the figure. "We shall see," he declared, a steely resolve threading through his words as the intruder lunged toward the photo, aiming to destroy the evidence that threatened to unravel everything. Eleanor screamed, but in the tumult, a candle tipped, igniting the hem of a nearby curtain. Flames curling upward hungrily as the room erupted in chaos, smoke cloaking their surroundings and igniting the momentum toward a vital confrontation. The shadows deepened, the storm howling outside, and the true game commenced in earnest. A race against time, secrets buzzing like wasps, and truths colliding in the darkness. What remained now was the question: who would emerge intact when the flames illuminated them? In that moment, the weight of every deceptive smile, every half-truth, screamed for release, and Poirot knew the ultimate reckoning approached, but would he have time to unearth it all before the smoke blanketed their reality? The scene hung frozen in time, the climax imminent, as fate loomed closer with every flicker of an all-consuming flame. Chapter 11: The Poisoned Violets. A chilling scream erupted from the shadows, cutting through the enveloping smoke like a knife slicing flesh. Eleanor's hands flew to her throat, choking back a sob as she pointed toward the parlor, where the flickering flames cast an ominous glow against the wallpaper, revealing the charred edges of forgotten secrets. The air was thick with the acrid scent of burned parchment and desperation. "The violets!" she shrieked, as realization dawned like the first shards of dawn breaking through the darkness. It was in the violets. Their poison is in the air. Poirot's heart raced, the little grey cells ignited by the urgency of the moment as the palpable tension thickened around them. "Calm yourself, ma chérie," he urged, taking a purposeful step toward her, his breath steady despite the chaos. "The violets? What do you mean?" His words sliced through the echoes of fear, drill-like in their conviction, seeking the heart of her panic. In the corner, Genevieve trembled, a mere silhouette against the curling smoke. "They were perfect," she choked out, voice barely a whisper. Those violets he kept in his study were supposed to symbolize something pure. They were meant for someone special, with a love for gardening. She faltered, her wide eyes glinting in the dim light, revealing an inner war. "But I now think they've become a weapon in a vile game of betrayal." "Betrayal?" Poirot echoed, positioning himself in front of them, his aura commanding despite the instability of the room. "A game indeed, but who holds the cards? And more importantly, what are the stakes?" With every word, he examined their expressions, searching for the slightest hint of truth, buried beneath layers of fear and resentment. Eleanor's voice quaked. "Lord Farnsworth took a keen liking to them, but we thought it mere affection. Now I wonder, were they not a symbol at all? Were they perhaps meant to poison, meant to mask a truth too ugly to face?" The man who had threatened them moments earlier was an enigma, but now another threat hung heavier still. A sinister legacy bloomed amidst the beauty of the violets. Poirot moved cautiously toward the fallen chair, sensing an urgency surge within him. He knelt, his fingers brushing against the carpet, the touch both grounding and electric, as a sudden thought struck him. "Tell me, Genevieve, did Lord Farnsworth ever mention the origins of these flowers? Intricate details, perhaps?" Confusion swept across her features, shadows from the flickering candlelight, dancing like spirits. He often spoke of how his mother adored them, of the garden she crafted, and the violets she nurtured. But, she hesitated, Her garden intended to speak of wealth and status, not poison. He was always one to cloak discomfort in beauty. It was his family's legacy, after all. You mean to say, Poirot pressed, that these violets were not merely decorative, but could very well conceal something nefarious. Lightning split the sky with a crack of brilliance, illuminating the room momentarily, a brief truth cutting through the darkness. Eleanor took a step back, her face pale against the ethereal light. Are you suggesting someone deliberately tampered with them, hid their true nature? The essence of flora often bears a darker tale than most dare imagine, Poirot murmured, his mind racing, internal connections firing in dizzying succession. What if the violets were not but a mere decoration or representation of love, but rather a facade for some sordid truth? Perhaps they served to distract from something more sinister buried in the Farnsworth legacy, the origins of his dealings. Enough! The intruder's voice sliced through the unfolding realization. The shadowy figure emerging from the depths of darkness, eyes glistening with determination and madness intertwined. You must not dig deeper, Poirot. You venture far from safe ground. The violets represent more than you comprehend, and you know not the depths of ancient family feuds. What are you hiding? Poirot countered, firm yet deliberate, not allowing fear to steal his command. Is it the family's desire to maintain a pristine image, or does the truth corrupt that which was once considered pure? In that charged moment, the air brimmed with electricity as Eleanor stepped forward, an unexpected light of courage illuminating her eyes. You fear their legacy, a legacy that would unravel your schemes. What lies have you poured into those petals to poison us, to silence the truth? But the figure remained resolute, the steel blade gleaming under the flickering candlelight as they stepped forward. Let the stones upon your path be your undoing, Poirot. All it takes is a gust. The door slammed open, wind howling violently through the entrance and sending a gust that extinguished the flickering candles in the room. Dark shadows enveloped them entirely, an unbearable pressure weighing on the silence. The roar of the storm outside seemingly echoed the turmoil raging within. Shadows became oppressive as the figure's knife glinted, a malevolent star in the engulfing night. Let us see how this tale ends, Poirot. You may know how to unmask fear, but not how to face the truth. And as if in response, the flames surged, licking higher up the walls, nudged by the furious wind, threatening to consume all within their grasp. Poirot felt time splinter around him, the urgency now crashing like waves against unyielding rocks. The truth, my dear, will always emerge, even from the ashes. He lunged forward, hands grasping at the figure, intent on unraveling the horror that lurked at the core of it all. Stop! The violets! They'll kill us all! Eleanor's voice sliced through the chaos, desperation igniting a primal need for revelation. But before Poirot could respond, a sudden explosion of glass shattered the air, sending fragments spiraling like bullets, and in that split second, the figure disappeared into the smoke, leaving behind an anguished scream that echoed against the storm's roar. Poirot could feel the emptiness of their absence, a chilling reminder that the game had shifted once more, like a violin string pulled taut, ready to snap at the slightest provocation. And as the flames clawed higher, intertwining with the screams of the manor's secrets, Poirot knew this was not merely about the violets, nor the truth hidden within their petals. This could turn fatal far beyond the boundaries of Lysander Manor. Racing against time and the encroaching smoke, he clenched his fists, determined to grasp whatever truths remained before the final curtain fell on their legacy. The poisoned violets bloomed, their darkness threatening to consume all, and the time for reckoning had never been more perilous. Chapter 12. The Truth Beneath the Surface. A blood-curdling scream echoed through the smoke-filled room, resonating with an undeniable finality that froze everyone in place. Flames danced menacingly, illuminating the figure of Eleanor, who clutched her throat as though the very air were an assassin's blade, choking back fear while shadows writhed around her. In the heart of the chaos, Poirot's instincts ignited, the little grey cells firing in vivid urgency. "No, we cannot succumb to dread. Not now," he shouted, his voice cutting through the clamour of crashing glass and roaring flames, his form unwavering as the storm outside raged. "Where is he?" Genevieve trembled, her wide eyes a mirror of terror as she darted about the cluttered parlour, room spinning in flickers of light. "He was here. I saw him." Thinking quickly, Poirot scanned the room, the contours shifting, smoke curling like a living being. The photograph, still partially visible from its frame, beckoned him closer, not merely an image of faded smiles, but the anchor to unravel an entire tapestry of deceit. "The photograph," he murmured, rushing forward while the others cowered behind him, not comprehending the urgency thrumming in his veins. "It holds answers buried beneath ash." Eleanor's voice came in a desperate gasp. "But what if the truth is too dangerous, Monsieur Poirot? What if it—" "Expose the darkness, Eleanor. We must clear the air, even if the price is high," Poirot insisted, kneeling before the image, flames ominously licking toward him. The sight of the documents crumpled behind sent shockwaves through his mind, evidence that could unravel the enigma entwining them all. His fingers seized the photograph, and as he yanked it free, a cascade of papers spilled forth, swirling in the eddies created by the fire's heat. "What is it?" Genevieve shrieked, stepping closer despite the danger. "Family correspondences," Poirot rasped, the words tasting bitter as he held them aloft for all to see. "Between Lord Farnsworth and a covert associate, the names less critical than the revelations contained within." Eleanor squinted at the papers. "No, that can't be true." "Ah, but truth often wears the guise of a serpent, my dear. You see, Farnsworth operated not merely as a gardener of flowers, but of illicit dealings. The violets were but a facade, a wreath that concealed corruption." As Poirot thumbed through the pages, his pulse quickened at a sudden mention of a construction firm, a name that resonated from whispered conversations held in the shadows. "Leslie and Company," he breathed. "The same entity tied to the estate development rumors. Was it not Lord Farnsworth himself who opposed further development?" "Then it was not merely about preserving beauty," Genevieve offered, horrified comprehension dawning in her eyes, "but about obscuring sins." "Precisely," Poirot exclaimed, spinning toward her. "A legacy marred by a father's bitter feud. He intended to protect it, and himself, by entangling himself with partners who could be controlled, until the poison turned upon him." Another flash of lightning punctured the shadows as he tackled the next lead, Eleanor's devastating connection to the man they feared. "You were close to him, Eleanor, close enough to touch the secrets that lie entwined in this sordid tale. Is it possible he held your affections as leverage, a tool in his twisted ambitions?" Eleanor staggered back, pale as a ghost. "I was a caretaker. Nothing more. I thought he loved me." "Love so often is but a mask to cover ambition, and ambition knows no bounds. Poirot lowered his voice, intent on sowing threads of insight where suspicion now flourished. Let us consider the depths of your affections. Do you dismiss the notion of threat while standing on the knife's edge? But we are trapped. What does any of that matter if we are to face death here? Eleanor's voice trembled, radiating panic. Poirot moved cautiously, feeling the suffocating weight of secrets surrounding them. Your heart felt true, and yet you claim ignorance, or perhaps there lies envy buried within, twisted by his affections for another. Would you harm to shield your love against betrayal? The knife, it was meant for me. Eleanor's voice trailed off, realization dawning as she staggered backward, her fear morphing into flames of rage. You think me capable? There exists a thin line between love and loathing, mademoiselle, he replied, eyes narrowing thoughtfully. Someone craves the violets, while others cringe under their curse. The very fabric of the room shimmered with possibilities, the tension palpable as Genevieve's eyes darted to the shadows beyond, scanning for their unseen adversary. We need to find him. He may yet emerge from the darkness. But Poirot's instincts pulled him backward, his gaze fixed upon the charred remains of a notably encouraging letter he'd yet to interpret in full. The truth is close, he declared, and I see, now, a letter not addressed to Farnsworth. Is it possible? Did someone wish for their secrets unveiled? He barely finished the thought before a voice emerged from the shadows, sharp and taunting. Ah, Poirot, ever the inquisitor, but some truths are better left buried. Heart racing, the air charged with malevolence. Poirot's eyes widened as the intruder stepped forth, wielding the gleaming knife in front of him, a figure who had melted seamlessly into the chaos. Did you truly believe I would allow you to expose the reality hidden amongst the blooms? The knife glinted, an ominous reflection of everything that had transpired as another bolt of lightning illuminated the figure, a chilling recognition unfurling as the truth began to evolve into horror. Time seemed to stretch impossibly as Poirot gasped, piecing together fragments of motives sprawling across the dark tableau before him. It cannot be. You are the one behind it all. But before he could utter another syllable, the figure lunged, and chaos engulfed them once more. Dark truths and light, now hopelessly intertwined, stakes rising as he braced against the encroaching storm. The game had morphed into a vicious crescendo, and the desperate dance of revelation approached its heartbreaking climax.